Hundreds of New Yorkers lined up around the block to score Thursday at 4:20 p.m. as Housing Works Cannabis Co, located at 750 Broadway in Manhattan's East Village, opened to the public. But the first sale had been made at a news conference earlier in the day as Chris Alexander, executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management, purchased a gaily illustrated bag of cannabis-infused gummies.
Round of applause for the first sale!
Alexander brushed away a tear and spoke emotionally about the promise of a new legal cannabis industry for New Yorkers.
It is extremely important that the first dispensary is not a major corporate operator. It is run by a wonderful nonprofit, a mission-driven nonprofit, Housing Works. So the revenue generated here is going to support their work for homeless New Yorkers, for formerly incarcerated New Yorkers, for people living with HIV. That is equity. That's what this first site represents. And we know that there are some other places that people could purchase this product. We won't get into that. But when you buy here, you know the product has been regulated, that it is safe. You're going to be buying brands that are led by New Yorkers of color and marginalized communities here in this store. You're going to be served by a workforce that is unionized. These are going to be good jobs with good pay and decent benefits. This is empowerment for our community and our city.
Chris Alexander is executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management, a state agency set up by the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, legalizing pot possession and setting up the framework for licensing weed shops across the state. The aim is to set up an industry that may inject billions into state tax coffers while employing tens of thousands of well-paid workers and aiming the new funds at the very communities, black, brown, and poor, most impacted by the war on drugs. The first license, a shop near Astor Place in the cannabis-infused East Village, is run by Housing Works, an AIDS organization that's become a major proponent of harm reduction in its approach to drugs. Its CEO is Charles King.
We intend to use the proceeds from hopefully what will not just be one retail outlet, but more than one, to ameliorate circumstances for other people who have been incarcerated due to possession and sale of drugs, as well as taking on overall the war on drugs. We believe in safe supply. We believe in full decriminalization. We believe that people ought to be allowed to live their lives whole.
Housing Works CEO Charles King. Cannabis, considered a less stigmatizing name for the evil weed, also known as marijuana, grass, weed, kind, Mary Jane, muggles, and countless other names, is legal for recreational use in 21 states. Others have provisions for marijuana as a medical treatment. The measures legalizing dank have mostly escaped America's decline into partisan rancor the past 5 years. Legalization is almost as popular in red states as blue. The phenomenon was on display at the Broadway Dispensary. A former drug warrior, Curtis Sliwa, founder of the subway vigilante Guardian Angels, reminisced with this reporter about our epic arguments at a time when your dealer was hanging in a back alley, not a Tony storefront in the village.
Oh, I used to go to war against you guys.
And now look at who won in the end.
No, you guys won. And in fact, you not only won, you've beaten the state with the legal licensing of legal weed because you've done it so long and so well. You deliver, you give credit, you have better grades, you've imported from California, which they can't do, and there's no taxes. And when we talk of capitalism, there's no better capitalism because now you have all this competition in the street, which is good for everybody.
But what about the ethical, moral? Because back then we used to say it was unethical, unmoral for us.
Well, remember, I was brought up on Reefer Madness, Sergeant Joe Friday, right? One Adam 12, right?
I love that show too.
Exactly. Remember Sergeant Joe Friday? Your kid will be vomiting on the street. The next thing you know, they'll be shooting heroin.
It had the opposite effect on me when I saw it. It seemed so ridiculous compared to what I saw.
Well, that's because you smoked a joint first and you were laughing your ass off while you were watching Sergeant Joe Friday and his partner.
Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa. Meanwhile, hundreds of wannabe stoners lined up around an entire city block, many sparking up their own blunts as they waited.
One of the things that I like about dispensaries is that you can have a proven track record of where it comes from. So, for example, if you get it from a guy, they might put like guava in it, or you might be really unlucky, get a little fentanyl in it. But if you just buy it from a dispensary, you know exactly where you're coming from, you know exactly what you're going to experience, you know exactly like where terpenes are in it. So it's a lot safer in the end.
What's your name?
Roy.
What are you doing right now? I mean, it's perfectly legal, right?
Of course it's legal, just smoking up a bone.
Well, why are you waiting online? You look like a guy who knows where to get.
I sure do. I want to see if they got anything even close to this good.
What's that?
I hear they don't have concentrates. They only got vapes.
So you're looking for other types of weed and stuff?
High end. They have them in California, so eventually New York will have to follow, just like we're doing with the regular weed.
Do you have a name? You want to use it?
Johnny Waz.
All right.
I think it's pretty cool to be able to do so. I'm from California, so this is like no. But it's new to be able to do that in New York City. So I'm just, looking to see what kind of products that they have, what they have to like offer, and just it's for the experience. And I think it's an awesome thing. It's about time. Like New York has been lagging, So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Irene. Yeah.
Don't
I'm
ride
here
that
in
bike
New York.
smoking
I'm
that
here in
shit.
New York. We'll get high, been high, and stay high.
Oh, crying!
Do it.
What's your Instagram?
Well, I'm a designer. I'm a creative. My name's Please Look at My AS. Please Look at My Ass on Instagram. My name's Ari Serrano though, and I just made this with my friend High Priority NYC, and it's a bong hat. So
It's a hat that's a bomb.
yeah, so I could ride a bike, I could play video games, and I don't have to worry about holding the joint in my hand.
It sort of looks like
Norman. Yeah, I'm with bagsgab.com. I'm throwing a 40-day New York City pot party, April 28th through June 6th.
It's adorable watching. This gentleman has a good description of the energy is wonderful. Everyone is just so excited and so happy. It's been worth it just to come stand here for a while, actually. Yeah. We've seen a lot of promotions, like a lot of sort of merch has been demonstrated. We've gotten a lot of free giveaways, and yeah.
Everybody on this line seems like somebody who knows where to get weed.
These are all equity licenses, so there are going to be profits that are going to in this case, the Housing Works, and all the other dispensary licenses have been equity licenses. So that's something like really special that New York has done, and I, for one, am so glad that my money is going to a good cause that I know about and not some random cartel in another country. So,
what's your name?
My name's Jessica.
Jessica, thank you.
During a packed news conference earlier in the day, some of the politicians most responsible for getting marijuana legalized spoke about the often lonely struggle to change entrenched drug laws. State Senator Liz Kreuger introduced her bill to legalize pot almost a decade ago. She says 50,000 people, almost all people of color, were arrested every year in New York City because of the pot laws, although white people use weed at the same rate.
It's not about whether you're going to use it or not. It's about whether people who want to can do so without facing a criminal record. And it's about opportunities for new entrepreneurs who may have been in the business illegally for decades. I've met people who their families have been in it for generations, can actually now be legitimate business people. And as a New York State legislator and as the finance chair, I have to say this, and we're going to get tax revenue. And as a state government, we need to draw in revenue to pay for the important programs and services for everyone. So I don't want us overtaxing anyone, and I think we have to be careful about that as this new product group evolves and businesses start. But this is a win-win-win for the state, for the city, for communities, and for people and their families, whether or not they ever want to use cannabis. So I'm just so proud to be part of this. I'm so confident that everyone who said you'll never get it done, you'll never get it done right, you'll never succeed at the social equity center of your goals, it's all going to just be owned by Coke and Pepsi in 10 minutes. They're wrong. We are right.
State Senator Liz Kreuger. With many more cannabis licenses to be granted throughout the state, the resulting tax income in a time of tight budgets has both Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul salivating. It's also a potential small business boom, and the city says it's ready. Dasheeda Dawson is head of cannabisNYC.
initially focusing on opportunities in entrepreneurship and economic development and prioritizing marginalized communities harmed from decades of poor policies, cannabisNYC will continue to rapidly create and curate cannabis-specific resources and business services for all New Yorkers interested in education, entrepreneurship, and beyond. Now, as we continue to build this legal industry, cannabisNYC is also here to offer support and what I call the necessary education to successfully complete this mission. The city will continue collaborating with the state to ensure an equitable cannabis industry is centered on restorative justice and economic recovery, while also ensuring public health and safety are protected. But equity must be protected also. So cannabisNYC will also ensure that government accountability to repair the social, economic, environmental, and human injuries caused by prohibition is not derailed by entrenched stigmas and misinformation. Today's historic step and the opening is just one small step with many, many more to come. It's actually bigger than the dispensary. It's much bigger. Ultimately, cannabis is a plant with agricultural, industrial, nutritional, medical, and even spiritual utilities that will impact nearly every industry.
Dasheeda Dawson is head of cannabisNYC. East Village Council member Carlina Rivera, an outspoken supporter and user of cannabis herself, was among the first buyers Thursday morning. She held up a yellow bag of gummies after a speech welcoming the pot shop to the neighborhood.
I've been waiting since I was a teenager. This is a historic step away from criminalization and stigma by giving entrepreneurs and organizations new opportunities in the financial capital of the world, in the greatest city on earth. We are going to make money for our state, and we are going to do that in a way that is fair and transparent, and you have our commitment on that. And as nonprofit stewardship, it's going to mean that the revenue is going to go directly into social services, and you've heard a little bit about that. Education, community services, drug treatment programs. I know my partnership right here in Council District 2 with Housing Works is already really, really significant and important in how we serve people from historically marginalized communities.
East Village Council member Carlina Rivera. Despite state legalization, cannabis remains under a cloud. It's a Schedule I drug to the federal government, putting grass in the same legal drug category as fentanyl or heroin. Therefore, federally regulated banks won't take money from a dispensary. Housing Works CEO says feds have complicated simple tasks like paying their federal taxes.
It is now legal to buy cannabis. It is also legal to consume. You can smoke a joint right here on the street. That's what's new. This is the first legal retail store at which people can purchase. Up until now, you could only purchase through an illegal shop unless you were buying medicinal cannabis. So this is the first opportunity for people to purchase cannabis in a legal manner.
And only cash today?
Only cash today. We should have our system set up in the next week that will allow us to take debit cards. Credit cards are federally regulated, and because it is still illegal to sell cannabis on the federal level, we're not able to accept credit cards. We also can't do business with any federally licensed bank. We're doing business with a state licensed bank. There is state tax, there's a city tax, and there's a heightened federal tax because since it's a Schedule I drug, we don't have the same deductions. Back in the 80s, I believe, there was litigation over this. Very well-known cocaine importer was convicted. Then the IRS came after him, as the IRS is wont to do. And so he was in prison. He said, sure, I'll file my taxes. And he took all of the standard deductions that the federal tax regulation allow. The IRS said, you can't take standard deductions on an illegal product. He went to the Supreme Court. He won at the Supreme Court, and so Congress passed a law limiting the deductions one can take for sale of an illegal product. Our agenda is decriminalization of possession of any drugs. And for people with opioids, we want to see safe supply. We want people to have access to what they need.
Housing Works CEO Charlie King. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York has introduced a bill to reschedule marijuana at the federal level, but has little chances of winning the 60 votes in the Senate chamber necessary for major legislation to pass. Nevertheless, State Senator Liz Kreuger says the complications and curveballs are worth the effort.
It was crazy, and I'm serious. I don't know that
my chief of staff, Brad, and I more meetings with people on development of that bill than any other issue I've worked on in 20 years in the legislature. And yet, you have so many states, including so many red states, who have legal marijuana, and you have quite a few ex-Republican officials who have gone into the cannabis business, that it doesn't really fall out on partisan lines.
How dare you reward people who broke the law, whether it's good or not?
Yes, I have gotten that question from Republican colleagues here in New York State. And I said, well, the law was wrong all those years, and if we convicted them of something, they've obviously already done their time and paid the price. And very rarely in life do we say, if you once had a problem and you did your time, you never get to be a worker or a business owner again. So I don't see why we wouldn't allow it here. And then I've also been told, well, liquor licenses you can't get if you previously had a conviction. I go, that's not true. You get a lawyer, you go to court, you get an exception, you get your liquor license. It's not true that this is not relatively parallel to almost any other business you might go into. If you light up a joint in my district on 86th Street and you're white, nothing's going to happen to you. If you were black and you lit up that joint on 86th Street or 125th Street, they bring you in, give you a desk warrant, and you start to build a criminal record. And it's been true forever. And again, the numbers I quoted when I got up there, 50,000 black and brown kids each and every year for a couple of joints. That's insane.
State Senator Liz Kreuger. Meanwhile, Thursday evening, a long-haired young man was moved by the day's festivities. He lit up a joint.
Oh, I was just walking down the street and I randomly saw what was going on and I decided to roll up a joint. It's kind of crazy. What is this, the first dispensary? Yeah, someone tricked me like a couple months ago. They told me the first dispensary opened up over there, like a couple blocks down by St. Mark's. I feel like if with any product, it's on the consumer to like know what they're getting. When I get my weed, anywhere I go, I know what I'm getting. I know what it smells like, and I know what it looks like. You can't trick me. You know what I mean? So I don't care if the government is approving it or not. I'll find what I want. You know.
And you're listening to the news from New York City. I'm Paul DiRienzo.